Welcome to the Bold SLP podcast. We are so happy that you're here and can't wait to share with you all of the amazing conversations we've been having.
We are the co-founders of the Bold SLP Collective, and we are also your hosts, Lisa, Desi, and myself, Ingrid. Each of us has a variety of experiences in all things bilingual and bimodal speech-language pathology. You'll get to know us pretty well on here.
We started this podcast to share our lived experiences, but also because we want to bring advocacy and cultural humility to the forefront of every speech therapy conversation. We hope that you'll join us each week, and we hope that you enjoy this episode.
So I'm really excited about today's topic. It's how did social media bring us together? And I wish I had all of it documented and recorded and a better memory. I'm sure our DMs are there to go back and look at, but we all kind of met through Instagram. I feel we all kind of had our pages going on, and I feel bad because I don't have a pinpoint moment whenever I first met you guys, but I do remember pivotal moments whenever we became friends. So I remember, Desi, when we first had our chat about the 8% on Clubhouse. So if you guys don't know, we have a Clubhouse group for bilingual SLPs, and a few of us started it on Instagram, and then it grew and grew and grew. And one of our very important first chats was about, are we as Cuban Americans, Mexican Americans, Latinx community, are we part of the 8%? And so Desi and I were both very firm that we felt like maybe we weren't a part of the 8% of SLPs who is racially not white. And we started a whole, I don't know, what would you call it, Desi?
We stirred the pot.
We stirred the pot.
Some people weren't ready to hear or have this conversation.
Because we were not talking about anybody identifying as anything for themselves. We were just talking about our own personal, we felt that we had a lot of skin tone privilege, and we were ready to talk about it. And that was just us. It was just where we were at. And I don't remember the time or day, but I remember just being in awe of Desi, just showing me and showing us how to stand up for our Black Latinx SLPs. And I was like, yep, that's someone I need to be friends with and learn from, because it was hard. She put herself out there, and I saw her put herself out there, and I was like, I want to be friends with that girl.
Oh.
Since then, I was bugging her on Instagram all the time. And I think at some point we exchanged messages and text messaging and calls, and had more and more Clubhouse chats of that same really tough conversations, but cathartic conversations. And I feel like Desi and I are very different. We're pretty different people. We had really different upbringings, and somehow we're both on the same page at the same time. So I think that's how we came together.
Yeah, I remember clearly the day that you messaged me and said, hey, we're starting a Clubhouse. I'm starting a Clubhouse. So, if you want to give me your phone number, I'll send you the invitation. And
you were like, who is this freak?
I was like, oh, Ingrid. Because I was really brand new to Instagram. And it's really funny because lately I've been on such a huge hiatus. If anyone follows me there, I am just really trying to conserve some energy here for the end of this 2021 year. And, I found myself, deep in Instagram. My husband's like, whoa, you are on there all the time. You're creating content. It's a really slippery slope sometimes. And I found that over time, not only was I connecting with you, Ingrid, specifically over Clubhouse, but I found myself, learning about different controversial topics or complicated subjects that were coming up on Instagram, and you turned into my sounding board. I'm like, hey, did you see this? What is this? Interpret this for me. Am I getting this right? Or am I getting this wrong? And I find it really funny because I feel like everyone who is that involved in Instagram has, or I hope they find a community like we have, because I just think it's so important. I can't imagine what it's like to filter all of the crazy messaging that there is out there, without some friends to turn to and be like, whoa, did you see this post? Did you see this reel?
Yeah,
So
it turned into a what did Asha do now
oh,
situation.
yeah. And actually at the end of this year, I'm realizing I've drafted and or sent 3 letters to Asha this year. So I think that's a positive effect of
Yes.
Instagram. But at the same time, I recognize that it drains me in other ways. So I'm trying to find a balance. Right now, my balance is no Instagram at all, but I'm trying to work my way back into it for 2022 in the most reasonable and healthy way. So
That's true.
yes.
Well, and then I've met Lisa through Instagram too, and here we are.
I know. And I remember, once people start coming to Clubhouse regularly, which, Lisa was doing, it was just one of those things where like the people who have like a lot of clarity and have been through the ringer and have come out the other side, like, I just feel like when those people come on to share something on Clubhouse, like you have, um, you know, it's just like, oh yeah, I want to be friends with this person. Like,
Yeah, Lisa
how did
started
they learn
coming.
that? Because I feel like I need to learn that, or wow, that's something that I would have said. So yeah, no, it was a
But
great thing that this came full circle. I feel like Clubhouse was also a really strong link for all of us.
right, because we started hosting a few. I remember we hosted that student loan one together, even before any of this came to be. But I'll backtrack a little bit because how I met Lisa was really amazing, and I don't forget this one. Lisa DM'd me after one of our Clubhouse chats, and then you guys know that I like to summarize it and put it on my page for everybody to see what we talked about. Someone from another page, and I think it was Amy from Cup of Counsel podcast, had seen our post, and I think Lisa had reached out to her about microaggressions, and Amy said, hey, you should check out Ingrid. She was talking about microaggressions the other day. And Lisa DM'd me, and she was so heartfelt in her DM. I was like, girl, let's Zoom. Like, I feel like we need to this is a lot what you're going through. Like, I can't like properly just like text you back. And we set up a Zoom. And we talked, like, I feel like I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to talk for like 15 minutes. She's going to realize that I've got nothing to say. Like, I looked up some articles on microaggressions, and we talked for like 3 hours that night, huh, Lisa? Like,
yeah, it was.
I was in my kitchen and just cooking and talking to you.
I ran to my husband and I was like, you know that girl Ingrid? He was like, no. I'm like, the one my speech plan, the one that Cup of Counsel told me about. He was like, I don't know any of these words you're using. And I'm like, anyway, she agreed to Zoom with me. And he was like, ooh, moving on up. But I joined Instagram for just one single person, one friend of mine who like, interned with me from Ontario. She came to Montreal to do like a bilingual internship. And she didn't have Facebook, and she knew I was posting videos of my daughter and doing little speech tips. And she asked me, can you please put it on Instagram? So the only reason I joined Instagram was to share my Facebook videos to this one friend. No idea about the push for social justice that was happening on social media, about all the people like you and me that were just kind of struggling alone in our little isolated spot. So what a whirlwind. I have like I know exactly when I met every single person. I don't have like the dates, but I know those specific moments because it started with that, which is Instagram, with that one friend. And then I realized that other people I knew were on Instagram, just random people, someone from church, someone from choir. Right. So people from different parts of my life, all different kinds of people were on Instagram. And then I was like, oh, let me see if other speech therapists are on here. But nobody I knew personally, speech-wise, was on Instagram. It was either I have no speech therapists around or I just add a bunch of strangers. And I didn't really know, or follow, think about Facebook. So I didn't know how Instagram worked. If you like follow someone, are you friends with them? Like on Facebook, is it weird? Is it like stalkerish? I really didn't know. So I wasn't following a lot of Instagram SLPs, except those big famous ones with like 20, 30, 40,000 followers, which you will never get access to. Like you could like a post or write a comment, but no responses. And they all happen to be white, just from my observations. Then one girl from Ottawa did like a little puppet show. And I just admired her so much because I was like, oh, I wonder if I'd ever have the guts to like show my face on Instagram or like do one of my activities. Because back then it was all just my daughter and like activities for my daughter. And I reached out to her. So that was my first time reaching out to a stranger. And she was like, I love your stuff. I watch your stuff with your daughter. And I was like, oh my God, that's so crazy. And she encouraged me to add a bunch of local speech therapists. So that's when I found lots of them, like with 200-300 followers, like little accounts like mine. And then I fell on Cup of Counsel, but not really. It was Speech Cabin. It was like the Speech Cabin or something.
Oh, I think that's Amy's account.
Yeah. So hers I added just randomly. And then she had like a generic welcome to my page kind of DM that went straight to me and mentioned her Cup of Counsel podcast. And I was like, ooh, SLP's doing a podcast. Like, that's interesting. So I listened to theirs and I thought, wouldn't it be so fun to do a podcast with like, what's it called? Attacking all the things that I'm struggling with right now. I don't know if anyone existed, but I don't know. I didn't really have the guts to like step it up like that, like Ingrid and Desi. So I wrote to Amy, said I loved Cup of Counsel. If she'd ever want to talk, I would love that. And she was like, ooh, someone from Montreal. And just the thought that I would be on anyone's mind was also just, how is this possible? But anyway, so we had a chat and it just kind of spiraled into all the things I was struggling with at work in terms of feeling isolated, microaggressions, just being an SLP of color and not knowing how to navigate a predominantly white field. And she said, you need to meet Ingrid. So I said, okay, tell me more. And she was like, she actually goes by My Speech Blend. I was like, ooh, My Speech Blend. And then she mentioned Clubhouse. And like my husband, these are all new words to me. I was like, Clubhouse, sure, yes, of course. And
it was still invite only back then.
I know. It like
iPhones only.
iPhones only, invite only. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. So she said to reach out to you. And so I know you probably don't feel this, Ingrid, but like you had a lot more followers than the little accounts I was following, not counting those big ones, which I actually happened to like unfollow now because they weren't really helpful to me in the end. And I was looking more for connections and people I can actually speak to and reach out to, not just like little tip videos that weren't exactly in the domain that I was working in. But anyway, you had more than the regular ones that I was speaking to. So I just assumed you were never going to see the message. And you wrote me back right away.
Yeah, I think you caught me right after work. Yeah.
And we're not in the same time zone either. So there's that. And yeah, you wanted to Zoom. And then you mentioned the rest. So you invited me to Clubhouse. That was a whole thing too. Ooh, she's got my phone number. Yeah. Yes. Really cool.
Well, whenever you messaged me, I was like, I cannot just like send a DM, like, like you were so stressed. And I was like, what is happening over there in Canada?
Yeah. It wasn't, I don't know. I'm stressed. Yeah, I was stressed, but I think I was like disappointed in the
Yeah.
lack of change that was taking place, and I didn't know what else to do. And you really, really did empower me in that conversation. Even the shift from saying not saying informal assessment and calling it dynamic assessment, because that's really what was
Mhm.
happening. It changed everything in my profession and the way I spoke up for myself. And all of my colleagues now use that term too.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I had just, I think it was Lily from Bilingual Speeching who had said she doesn't even use informal language sample. Like she doesn't use the word informal when she's describing her review of a language sample. It's like there's nothing informal about it,
Yeah.
you know?
I don't remember if it was based on that too, but I think around the same time that post came out, I was like, hey, this is crap. Like, why am I using this word? It makes it sound like what I do is not a clinical measure. Like, this is just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a nice thing too. Like, I feel like, sometimes I try to convince people. I find like, hey, are you on Instagram? Hey, do you participate in this community? Like, there are so many things that I don't care to participate in, kind of like you were saying, Lisa, about like those really, really big accounts that are kind of, they feel like very much like they're trying to sell you a product or something. I don't
Mhm.
really enjoy those as much. I mean, they're fine. And I follow some of them, but just for like general knowledge and, just awareness on certain important clinical topics, like, yeah, I've changed it. If I'm going to call it some sort of other assessment, I call it a clinical measure or a dynamic assessment. Why would I
Mhm.
say that I'm doing something informal? Like, no way.
It's
Yeah.
absolutely formal. So the irony with the word formal is that if you're doing a formal language sample, it's not natural. And it's not the language sample that you're actually looking for. You're looking for one through play, through conversation. And then the test battery, I can't get over that. So this is just, I know, offside speech stuff, but when they talk about doing a test battery on a child, a lot of us think that it's like multiple tests. I did this test, and now I did the full battery. But I really feel the point of a battery is just to get the child in different situations to see if they really perform that way, whether it's in
Right.
class, at home, on the playground. Like one of them could be like a formal one, formal or whatever, like the standard protocol. But yeah, it's just we need to be careful what words we're using and not downplay the good work that's being done in very creative ways.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I was having a conversation with someone the other day. I'm trying to find what I said because I had a way more like work on my mind. Oh, I think we were talking about um, how do we present these scores um, because we have to, like at the schools, we have to. I
Right.
mean, Desi, you know that. So even if we don't agree with standardization and standardized samples, like we have to present them. And so I was telling her, like, I just presented, like, hey, remember, this is just a snapshot in time, one day of how this child performs, one test. Like, it doesn't, mean everything for the rest of their life. So I was talking to her about that. And I'm like, and I also think, like, whenever we are giving these assessments, we can't just like give them willy nilly. Like, there is critical thinking that goes into choosing what we're choosing and which parts of it and what we're going to learn from them. So I don't know. I just feel like that's not taught in school enough. And
Yeah,
that's
I
why
mean,
so many SLPs rely on formal assessment because they weren't taught to trust their clinical
mhm.
decision making skills.
But even being flexible enough to change the test even midway, like, oh, this is not an appropriate one for this child, or this
And
is not
say
the
that on the
language.
report.
Yeah,
I discontinued because.
yeah.
Oh,
All of our
yeah.
babies are just out here right
Yes, they're
now.
out
Yes.
here all the time.
Just in and
Mine came
out.
in for water. Lisa's baby needed to go to the bathroom. Desi's woke up.
Yep. He just woke up.
But the same person that I was chatting to, that she's like telling me how happy she is with our moving forward with our Bold SLP collective. I told her we're kind of hibernating right now. Like we're all moms, we're all on break from school. Like it's all, and she's like, if you need a person who's not a mom, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait to like grow it like that, you know, to
Yeah.
where we have other people.
And I was
join
going to
us.
say, I would love to have this discussion as a topic later on. I think it's
Yes.
just so important because I feel like the way to break out of, you know, the clinical ruts that we're in is to hear other, you know, just other ways. I mean, I feel like every time I read a report from somebody else, I'm always trying to reflect, like, you know, how does this really reflect like who this child is? And
Yeah.
I'm always trying to think, you know, especially if I know the child and I read a report and I'm like, is this really the essential information that I need? I just
Yeah.
read a report that had no standardized testing in it. And it was, and it was a teletherapy evaluation. So it was really hard to establish rapport. It was a child with like very few words. Like, I don't know, like that person could have done a lot of things differently, but you know, it just makes it so that I'm always thinking like, how would I have done this differently? Especially with a child who's not very verbal, you know, what should that look like? So yeah, I feel like, there's so many great options for figuring out, you know, what communication looks like in different settings. And sometimes we're just so stuck on these standardized assessments when it's just the most contrived thing on on earth.
Well, to our listeners, like this little sideways chat, that's how all of our conversations would go. We always like would go on, and like we're all so passionate about what we do. And I feel like it's interesting because we're all in our own settings, but still connect so much, like even though we're in different countries and different settings. But that's what we connected over. We connected over motherhood, over things we care about, over what we see in this profession as the future. Even though we're all pretty veteran clinicians, like we have like kind of changed pretty much everything we were taught
Yeah.
as we've gone along. So I don't know. I'm just so glad I found you guys.
I appreciate the patience in this group. Like the fact that we're all mothers is huge because in our WhatsApp, it's like, sorry, can't talk, my kid's sick. Or sorry, we all have COVID. Or like everyone seems to understand exactly what it is. And
we believe you.
yeah, you believe me right away.
We
And
know
I
it's
was
hard.
thinking, can you imagine if we were working with like, I don't know, like a single person who like difficult for them to understand what we need and how much of a break we need at this time. But the work
Even
still
someone
has
who
to
had a
happen,
nanny, like let's not even go that far.
honestly.
If we-
Or money. If we just were with somebody rich, we
or
never
if it
understand.
wasn't COVID, we can
Now
actually
I'm
take
really
our kids
laughing.
places.
You're like, if we had money, let's really laugh hard at that one. We're looking at, oh my gosh, it's just too funny. I do think, like, again, like this is what is the magical thing about social media. You know, you stay on there long enough, you can find people, and I feel like COVID really facilitated, you know, this kind of happening. You know, like the fact that we were able to come together. But
Yeah.
I'm pumped. And it's so funny because this also happens to be an episode. This is the first time that we've reunited in probably like a month at least.
Yeah.
So it feels great. I'm so glad to be here with you guys again.
Yay. So I stopped you guys because you started veering into our next episode topic.
Oh,
How motherhood is
Oh,
and being a working parent, and how like motherhood affects how we are as SLPs and vice versa. So we can just keep going.
But
And this can be two different ones.
just quickly on the topic of social media, like you're right, Desi, like the longer you stay on, the more likely you are of meeting like the right people. But you really have to step out of your comfort zone and like reach out to people and DM them. And I can't imagine, Ingrid, if I never wrote back to Cup of Counsel or Speech Cabin. Like I wouldn't have met you, I wouldn't have met Desi, I would not have been on Clubhouse for sure. But it's scary because you can get not so much a rejection, but maybe someone just won't see your message, or they'll say, sorry, I don't have time. Or in my case, one random SLP who was like, "That'll be $100 if you want to
I
chat."
think you have to have like a thick skin, but also like a perspective.
I
But
think
yeah.
I learned that in this group, like what not to take personally,
Yeah.
but also what is an actual attack. Like to really decipher between those two. And
Yeah.
it's one thing to be called sensitive, but then it's another thing to just like call out something that's not okay. So I like that example with Clubhouse, yeah, because I personally, when I joined, you guys were all professionals. I was the one with the little party hat, and I was like, and you like called me right up to the stage.
Because I was so happy you joined after we talked.
And it went really smoothly. I loved it. I loved all the clubhouses I went to.
I know every time I try to take a break, like somebody's like, "Hey, let's do another one." So it's nice. It's nice that we got that going and got it started, but or just keep
Are
going.
we doing the last word?
Let's see. What's my last word on this one? Is it what I can't think? Like, what's another way to say like going for it? Like just going for it.
Seize the day.
Like, because I
No,
feel
think
like
about
that
Get out there.
Well, Lisa, like how she reached out, like she just went for it, and then we just went for it with Clubhouse, like, and I joined Instagram the same way, like just went for it. I had no idea, and I remember exactly why and how, and I've talked about this, and it was a dream come true talking to her about it with having our say. Tay from having our say, and I've already talked to her, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I connected with her on Clubhouse first, and I got to tell her that. But the reason I joined Instagram is her, because she presented on the SLP Summit, that conference that we had whenever all things shut down and went to teletherapy, and they had that like emergency summit that was free talking about teletherapy. And she presented on diversifying your library, and then talked about how she had an Instagram and how she had written a book. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to go see what's going on Instagram, because I had one and I never used it. So I followed her and then realized what she was doing with Smiles for Speech, and then found all the people doing TikToks and Reels because of her. And then all the other bilingual SLP came later. That was because of Bianca. Because at first I was just doing like, because I love literacy. So I was just doing books that I love. And then Bianca was doing Latina.speechy. And she was selling these t-shirts to fundraise for scholarships. And I connected with her. And she's the one who taught me the concept of taking up space. She's like, you need to come on here. You need to take up space. Like, you have experience, you have the background, and other girls like me need to know you're out there. So she's another one that I always remember, like when we connected, because she's another reason why I shifted what I was doing on Instagram. Because I was like you, Desi, I was kind of like, well, it's kind of not fun. And then I kind of shifted and started building community, and it was totally different from then on.
Yeah, I'm out to jump on that. I mean, I think my last word is community, because of the fact that it is a place where, you know, I've mentioned a few times, I've been on this like long hiatus. I don't know how long it's been now, but in Instagram time, it's a very long time.
We
at
don't
least
care
a
as
month.
long as you still talk to us. You can take
Yes.
a hiatus as
Well,
long as you
and
want.
that's why I still follow. I'm slowly integrating myself. But it's nice to like get messages. They're like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you here in a while. Like, it's very sweet. It feels almost like, you know, yeah, like a little circle of
People
friends.
miss
And they're
you.
like, hey, you know, like we played bridge together, you know.
What?
Where'd you go? Yeah. So
We need to have a whole episode on the fact that I don't get any of those references. What is bridge?
You said the party hat thing, and I'm like, what?
Oh,
Sorry. So no.
on Clubhouse, you get a party hat
When you're new,
when
you
it's
have
your
to wear a
first
hat.
Clubhouse.
Oh, I know what you meant now. Okay. No, I have no idea what bridge is. I just think about
It's an
like
old-timey game.
the little
you know.
viejitas, yeah, who like get together and they're like, ooh, bridge.
Like
I have
dominoes?
no idea. Yeah. Yes. Like some sort of like culturally relevant game. Right. Bingo. Anyway, that's my word. And I love that it's been a last word of laughter for us, because I think that's what it's all about. If you're not having a good time, then,
Why
What are
do
you doing?
to move on. Yeah.
What about you, Lisa? What's your last word?
Okay, wait. So we have go for it from Ingrid, and then we
Yeah,
have
breaking the rules.
I think I might break the rule too, but mine would be reach out. Reach out. I know none of us got on Instagram to become famous or influencers. We really were looking to connect with the right people and move our practice forward in the most ethical way. So yeah, reach out for me.
That's awesome. You're so smart.
So are you too.
Okay. Thank you for listening and supporting the Bold SLP Collective. You can find a closed caption version of this podcast on our YouTube channel. We will also have show notes on our website. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you do all the podcast things. Follow, subscribe, download, and review. And don't forget, we love hearing from you, so connect with us on Instagram at the Bold SLP Collective. Stay bold and humble. See you next time.